You can never go wrong by pairing a vibrant ankara fabric, aka African print, with a plain colored lace. My friend sent me these two fabrics. She wanted me to make something nice for her, and I sent her this little drawing right here to explain what I'll be doing. She approved of it and I got to work immediately. In this video, I'll be putting you through the process of drafting the pattern, transferring to fabric, and subsequently we'll be putting this piece together. Okay, you're welcome to Kema Freak. My name is Kemi Omorogbe. I hope you have a nice time watching this. Let's get on to work immediately. Here is my basic bodice block. I'll be starting the process from this as usual. If you don't know how to create this, check the link in the description box for a detailed tutorial. This is my top margin right here. I have my bust line, on the bust line, and the waistline. You may notice I already created some lines using my pencil, but we'll be highlighting it. First, I'll start with tightening the on the bust line, and I did mine 1 inch on both sides of the dart line. I also did 1 inch on both sides of the dart line on the waist as well, and we have our on the bust tightening right there. I'm connecting the waistline to the on the bust line, and then using the curvy part of my ruler, I'll be connecting the under bust line to the bust line like so. You need a smooth curve right here. You don't want anything sharp or pointy. Next, I'll be creating the shoulder dart. Measure the width of the shoulder right there and divide into 2 to get the position of the shoulder dart. I'll be connecting that center point to the bust line. Now I need to decide on the depth of the neckline, and I made use of 6 inches. You can work with less, a little less or more, depending on how comfortable you are with exposing your cleavage. So at the new neckline right here, I need to tighten it. So initially I made use of 1/2 inch on both sides, but then I eventually remembered that this piece, this part of the outfit, will stand independently like a tube dress, so I eventually tightened it some more. I will let you know at what point this happened. Now, if I was making a regular yoke, this is what I would do. I will connect the dart to the shoulder like so. Some of you asked these questions in my previous videos about what will happen when the yoke is too wide and all that. You can either trim it off from the side, or you also take it out from the pattern like this basically. So now for this piece, I'm not making use of this second dart I created. I just wanted to show you guys. At this point, I actually realized my camera stopped recording without me knowing, so I'll just explain what I did to you. I used my curved ruler to connect the center front to one leg of the dart, and from the other leg of the dart, I created this slight S-shaped curve connecting the neckline to the armhole. So you're basically treating this like a tube dress, if you know what I mean. Okay, so you need to blend the neckline into the armhole curve like so. So you can see, if you look very closely, that there is a side dart or bust dart right there, but it wasn't clear enough, so I am just highlighting it so that you guys can see it as well. And then, because I'll be transferring this dart, I connected it to the bust point so that I can close up the dart while opening up another. So because of the additional 1 inch on the waist for this very wide 2 inch wide dart, okay, I added additional 1/2 inch at the bottom, and at the level of the chest line I added 1/2 inch because of the dart intake. So I just basically needed to extend the side of this pattern because of the dart intake. Now I'll be marking out my yoke on this pattern. I want my yoke to start about 2 inches below the chest line right there, and if you notice the edge of this lace, it's actually almost straight. Okay, so I will be making use of a straight line. Otherwise, if your lace isn't straight, you may need to place the edge of the lace just to get what you need exactly. Okay, so I connected that to the center front. This yoke will not be attached to the two part, it will just be like an overlay Okay, I'll just be placing it on the tube. That's the ankara part of this dress. Okay, so now I'll be tracing out the yoke as a separate piece on another paper. Now I have the yoke set aside. I went ahead to tighten the new neckline, okay, the tube neckline, like I mentioned earlier on. I added like additional 1/4 of an inch, so that means this dart is 0.75 inch wide on both sides of the dart leg, so that way our tube part can be tighter, okay, can hold the body more firmly. This part I am performing my truing. Okay, I just needed to close up the dart, then redraw the shape of the tube, just so everything blends well after, you know, cutting it out. So guys, don't forget to close up the bust dart. This has happened to me a couple of times where I just went ahead to transfer the side panel of my pattern without closing up the dart. Don't forget. Okay, so I closed this up, taped it down to hold it in place, and, you know, cut out the entire dart from the center piece. Set my patterns aside. Now this is the back pattern, and here I'm also marking 6 inches from the top margin to create the neckline. Okay, I ended up modifying this, so watch out. So you can work with these, just a straight yoke line like so or you can decide to slant it like I did mine. So I just placed my ruler somehow, I didn't even measure, and I went ahead to create this slanted line. I'll be attaching the yoke of the back piece to the ankara. I'll be attaching the lace to the ankara. It won't be like the front where it was an overlay I planned for, but for this it will be like a properly attached yoke. So now you may be wondering what will happen to this dart that I didn't take out. Okay, I'll just leave it, cut my yoke like so, but you have an option of closing it up anyways, but I just decided to leave mine so that if I happen to have an excess, I can take it out from the side when I am sewing. Okay, it's always safer to have an excess than a deficit. Okay, so I left mine like so. Does not mean you can't close it up. Okay, you can do that. So here is my skirt pattern, and it's just your regular straight skirt. I have done a tutorial on this before. I'll drop the link above and in the description box so you can check it out. It is very detailed and easy to follow. So for the front pattern, I'll be modifying a little bit. If you remember the diagram I showed you earlier on, like the lace was attached in a slanted manner. So from the knee line, on one side I went up by about 2 inches, and on the other side I came down about 4 inches just to give me the slant that I wanted. Now the sleeve is quite unique. It is I don't know if this is what is called leg of mutton sleeve, but I think it's a variant of it. So I just marked my elbow line right there, and I'm cutting it out. So at the upper part of the sleeve, I'll be slashing and spreading. This spread can be as you wish, depending on the quantity of fabric and how full you want the sleeve to look. I'm spreading all through because at the attachment of the sleeve to the armhole, I'll be creating pleats there, just like I'll be doing same when I'm attaching the lower part of the sleeve to the upper part, the exaggerated part of the sleeve. So you can decide to place your cuts out on paper and do the proper thing, draw it out, blend it and do all of that. I'm just showing you how to do that here, but I ended up working directly on my fabric. So this is what you have on paper. You can decide to also extend the length, which I did on fabric because I wanted it to be fuller, to look fuller. I didn't want the exact length of the half of the sleeve rather. So here I am cutting out my sleeve pattern and adding the necessary allowance. I added half an inch at the top, and at the bottom I added about 5 inches extra just to get that full effect I wanted to see. Now to the bottom half of the sleeve, I added 1 inch side seam allowance, then half an inch at the elbow part, 2 inches for folding the hem of the sleeve, and this is what I have. Now I am transferring the skirt pattern to fabric, starting with the bottom half. So I added 1 inch side seam allowance on both sides, then half an inch for joining with the fabric. So having done that, I placed the other part of the skirt pattern on fabric, added the same 1 inch along the sides, half an inch along the knee region, then half an inch at the waist region for joining to the bodice. So after this, I went ahead to cut out the lining for the skirt pattern, the front of the skirt pattern. Now I am transferring the pattern for the back piece to fabric, and I added 1 inch at the side. I didn't add any other allowance at the zip region, that's the center back, but I added half an inch at the top, then extra 2 inches for what I call turn up at the hem. Here is the center front panel of the bodice, and I added half an inch along the dark line, half an inch at the bottom, half an inch at the neckline as well. After this, I nudged the bust line and the under bust line. So for the side panel, I added 1 inch at the side, half an inch at the top, at the bottom, and along the dark line. And I also went ahead to notch this as well. Here is the pattern for the front yoke, and like I explained earlier on, I will be placing this in a slanted manner so that the edge can align with what we designed. So here I'm adding half an inch along the armhole, the shoulder line, and also the neckline, then half an inch at the tiny side right there. I left it at half an inch because I know I didn't close up the dart, and most likely I will have some excesses at the side. So here is the back yoke. I also added the allowances. Apart from the center back, we have half an inch all round. For each of the piece I cut out, I went ahead to cut out lining and a fusible interfacing for each of them. So this is our front bodice panel, whatever. So here we want to create the pattern for the dart. I'll be making it for the I want to create the pattern for the breast pad. I'll be using the traditional wording, and my radius, which is the distance between the under bust and the bust line, happens to be 3.5 inches, and I'm marking that at the bottom and at the side. But at the top, I didn't want to go too far in, so I just marked like half an inch below the neckline, which eventually was around 4 inches from the bust line, the bust point rather, and I connected all my dots like so to create the side panel for the breast pad. Don't forget to label the bust points and the top or the bottom. I'm talking from experience. So having done this, I went ahead to cut out this piece. Now at the center front panel, I'll be doing something similar, but I want a full padding for the center front. I'm not cutting out like a separate curve. It's just going to extend from one bust point to the other. So I marked from the center front and then connected it to 1/2 inch along the dart line. Remember, that was what I marked for the other side, so they need to match up. So I just cut off that tiny part right there, and the other side of the pad just has to be the underbust region, which I cut off. Now I'll be transferring these two to a wadding. Okay, I like to make use of a slightly flexible, not too hard type of wadding. So this is my front piece, the main fabric, and like you see, I have ironed in fusible interfacing on this. You can either place the wadding before the fusible interfacing, or you place the interfacing on the wadding. I went ahead to use a steam iron to hold it together. So join me in the next video where I'll be showing you how I sew this piece together to create the beautiful outfit we have, and don't miss that tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.